This is the Weighing In Podcast with Rick and Jina. This podcast is a collaboration between Empower Weight Loss and Lifestyle Coaching and Next Step Lifestyle Coaching. In this episode, we talk about something that everyone faces from time to time, getting back on track with your weight and your healthy lifestyle choices. We cover the emotional toll of being off track and then brainstorm the best strategies for righting the ship as soon as possible. Getting back on track is next.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a really interesting and ever topical area, getting back on track. Oh my goodness. So, Jina, you're going to have to talk to me about this. I'm not familiar with this. None of the people I work with ever go off track. I've never personally gone off track myself. You want to explain a little bit?
Oh, God, yeah, I never go off track.
Never.
I am perfect every single day, 7 days of the week. You know, when I have a stressful day, no, it never happens to me. Yeah.
Isn't that kind of our first point, that everyone goes off track at some point? It's the most normal thing in the world. And I mean, let's just take the stigma out of it as much as we can. We'll never take the emotions out of it.
No.
Right? But we should acknowledge the emotions. We can get there, but everyone goes off track at some point.
Yep. Everybody.
Period.
And I think the big point we want to make here is that it's okay. And I think that what happens for people is when they go off track, they think that that is the beginning of the end, and it doesn't have to be. And I want people to walk away from this podcast knowing that it's normal, and then we'll obviously give them some tips on what they can do.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
So normal, and even saying it a little stronger, pretty much guaranteed to happen at some point. So actually on offer, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but if it's something that always happens and there are specific things you can do to get back on track, couldn't you almost view the concept of getting back on track as a skill or a set of skills unto itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what a lot of our members do is if they go off track and they're not perfect, then they throw in the whole towel. All the work they've done, they give up on that. And so part of the skill is learning that, you know, it is normal to go off track and how to turn it around quickly and get right back on track. And so you're not waiting 4 days or 5 days or a week or 3 weeks or till the kids go back to school. You know, that's always a big one. I'll get back on track when the kids go back to school. I'll have more time.
Yeah. That's maybe going to be the top takeaway, which is to the sooner you can jump on it, the better, before you start to go more off track, the old proverbial slippery slope.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. So yes.
So going off track, let's just unpack it a little bit. What can it look? It looks like so many different things. It can be very big and obvious. It can be very small and subtle. What does it look like? I was thinking about this question for myself. Mm-hmm. How do I know when I'm going off track? Or what does it look like when we're going off track? But what examples stick out in your mind of common ways that people go off track?
Well, I know for me, I'll start with me, is so it's often at the end of a day, and I start to negotiate. You know, I'll say, I look at the back of something and I'll say, oh, well, it's only so many calories for this many things. So I have that many things, 5. And then I start to say, I'll just have 5 more. I'll just have, right. And then I'm like, oh, well, I blew it. Yeah. So I sit down with a box.
I hear you. Right? Or a bag. Can we please give the world of chips some respect here?
Yes. Oh, wait. Or a quart. Ice cream. That's a biggie, right?
That's right. Maybe a little less so with our folks who've taken on the wonderful creamy device, but even that, sometimes the ice cream's just too easy. Yeah, so lots of different examples. My answer to this question, while I was thinking about it, and unfortunately I have some very recent experience with this. How does it look for me to be going off track? Going to more restaurants. I've noticed that. for whatever reason, it's not like we're big restaurant people, but I kind of consider if you order in sort of a restaurant experience as well. And for whatever reason, we have just had a series of restaurants, whether it's going out or ordering in. Of course, the kids, their vote plays a role, and you know what they always want to do.
Right.
Mom, when was the last time you cooked me a good home cooked meal?
Yeah.
Well, you don't hear that anymore.
No, I know. Kids love to go out to eat.
Yeah.
And it's summer too. We're heading into summer, which is interesting because that lends itself, I think, going out more, don't you think, in the summer?
Oh, that's absolutely.
Right?
We used to always ask that question through the years. What's harder, the holidays or the summer? And invariably, people would say the summer. And I think, A, it's longer, but B, your point, there's just this undeniable sociable component being around people. Sure, the holidays, but they're much more sort of focused, right?
Mhm.
The holiday experiences.
Plus, I think people get into summer mode, summer brain. It's very laid back. It's kind of off the cuff. It's not as structured of time. People are on vacation.
Summer vacation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Easy to go off track in the summer. And then again, I'll start in the fall. It's always that. That's a big sign of off track is when you're starting to talk in time frames. I'll just start in the fall. I'll start at the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's where it starts to get a little sneaky. So you've got your obvious ways.
Mhm.
We don't need to show it here, but in our group sessions this week, we're just sharing something that Coach Kate had texted to Bill and I. And it was this Cheesecake Factory, usual culprit, but she just took a photo of the individual slices on display.
Mhm.
1,550 calories for a slice of
That is
slice.
unbelievable.
A slice of cheesecake.
That's unbelievable.
Used to be the whole cake, 1550. Now it's a single slice. So obviously, if you're sitting and you're having a 1,550 calorie piece of cheesecake, you're off track. That's obvious. But you mentioned a couple. Let's dig them up a little bit. How about this one? Very common one. I know I'm going off track when I don't want to get on the scale.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you don't want to see it. Just out of sight, out of mind.
Is there
Yeah.
anyone who can't relate to that one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and but then how about therefore I'm not going to get on the scale. I'll get on the scale in 2 weeks or
Right.
some other time in the future. It sounds like the right decision in the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think, like I said before, getting off track, there's a lot of negotiating that goes on.
Yes.
And I think anytime you start to get into that brain where there's a lot of I'll do it whens and there's a lot of conditions around it, that's a sign you're probably going down the wrong the cheesecake highway.
That's right. Oh God, let me please take a detour. I'd rather not.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say too, and you might be about to say this, but I think you can sometimes get off track when you're not doing your PA.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, because for me, exercise is sort of a foundational behavior. It kind of holds everything together. When I'm doing PA, everything kind of falls in place a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
And when I don't do PA, it's easy to get off track with my food,
Yes.
which is counterintuitive because you think, oh, I better be, but it's very easy for me to get off track when I'm not doing my PA, which is also a plug for why I do PA, among many reasons, but that's one of them. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting when you're in a structured program like ours, it's all part of a system. You
mhm.
do the exercise and it reinforces making healthy choices on the diet end. When you're just sort of catch as catch can, just dieting on your own, there is a trap of falling into, they call it licensed self-indulgence, which is, oh, I did my PA. Oh, I did a great workout.
Yeah,
Now I have more latitude on the food end. That's a trap to fall into. But I would say I know our members don't do that
right.
because it's a much more focused, confronting,
Yeah.
unified approach to managing. I did my PA and I'm going to do the healthy dietary choices too.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I do think our members, because we tell them, are aware of that trap. But I think a lot of people in the world fall very much into that trap. They use exercise as an opportunity to eat more when in fact, exercise should be seen as something more of a healthy lifestyle behavior
Yeah.
to help you manage your weight, your health, all of that. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that one
Yeah,
up.
I remember one study that talked about it and then specifically gave the example of the energy drink after the workout, and it ended up being a net positive in calories. The energy drink outdid the PA and added a few more calories on top of that.
Yeah.
And yet the person's, of course, feeling better with the exercise, feeling more virtuous. And and now look at this energy drink. I mean, this it couldn't be any better. But if it's got
Yeah.
calories in it, well, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just to take this one step further, and I don't want to get too far off track, it is amazing to me. I left the gym the other day, did a pretty hard workout, and my Fitbit tells me how many calories. So it's like 330 calories, let's say. Right. And I thought to myself, that is one slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so unfair that I could literally eat. I mean, I'd eat a pie. I could eat the whole pie. And for an hour's worth of it's amazing. So I think that's just a point, sort of a little off track, but related, that you can't use exercise to manage calories, and that it can help you stay on track, but it shouldn't be seen as the thing, to help you.
It's just not effective enough. It doesn't, none of us burn enough calories for what we can do on the food end and damage. And, everyone says it, you can't outrun an unhealthy diet. Yeah. So I think just to your point, though, about how the exercise does, and when it falls out, it can be the beginning of a slippery slope and leading you off track. Again, just if you look in the research, when you look at people who, we know that there's an effect, it supports weight loss, but it certainly doesn't drive weight loss. But when you look at weight loss maintenance, the physical activity suddenly becomes much, much more important. And,
Absolutely.
there's, in my reading of the literature, there's no specific reason that has been identified as why that's the case, but I think you've just hit on it, which is when you are investing the time, the effort, putting in the energy on the exercise, it does have you feeling more successful and more likely to confront the choices that in your heart of hearts you probably know you should be making if you're trying to stay on track with your weight.
Right. Absolutely. Lots of points there to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
by the way, we should say too, just PA, so our listeners understand, is physical activity.
thank you. Yes.
Just a short way of saying physical activity or exercise. Yeah,
Right. PA.
I know.
Yeah. So, okay, let me just give you one other one, just because there are so many, you could never do them justice, but I always like this one. I know I'm going off track when I'm buying my favorite foods
Yeah.
for the kids. For the kids. Yes.
Yeah.
Or for my husband.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. You know what, too, though? That is classic, but I think then there's like a school of people who do that and aren't necessarily aware.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think of my mom, who struggled with her weight.
Mm-hmm.
She would say things like that, but I really think she believed it.
Yeah.
I don't know that she knew it was the beginning of her going off track. Anyway, that could be a whole nother talk show, but it's just interesting. But it is definitely.
Well, I'm not going to let it go. May I step into the confessional, Sister Gina? Please. I have an actual example of this. It's become a joke with all the people in our program. So Walmart sells, lots of indulgent foods. They also sell a very large bag of white powdered donuts.
Um,
And I don't think I've shared this one in our podcast before, but I bought it. There was literally, there were no connections in my brain. Not even trying to justify, well, I'm buying it for the whomever. I just bought them. But the reality is, as you step into our house, no one in this house eats white powdered donuts except me. No one eats them. So there I was, put them in the carriage, and it just goes to show you, like, we could just slip into these behaviors totally unconsciously.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And what to do about that?
But if we could, I just don't want to be tone deaf because, getting back on track, and we've already laughed a few times here. How devastating is this? Given so many people have a history of not feeling good about their weight, and then here you are, and let's assume you were on track to some degree, And now here you are, you find yourself back off track again. What are some emotions that come to mind for you?
I mean, frustration,
So
guilt,
frustrated.
anger,
Yeah.
sadness, a little bit, hopelessness.
Yeah.
You know that here I go again. I'm just destined to be overweight, I guess. This is
Mhm.
just not my path in life. I can't do it. Very negative, very heavy. Like to me, the emotions are just super heavy and they kind of weigh you down, no pun intended.
Yeah. Burden.
And burden. Great
Total
word.
burden.
Yeah.
Total burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes it so much harder to do the work when you're feeling that burdened,
Yes.
weighed down with that negativity.
So
That's the
just
hard part.
think of that toxic combination. We started the conversation by saying it's guaranteed.
Mhm.
This is guaranteed given where we live. US 2020. Today's
Absolutely.
food culture. It's gonna happen. Period. Period. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
And when it happens, you will be then burdened by some myriad combination of negative emotions.
Mhm.
What a bummer. Like
Well,
really.
and it only feeds into being off track because that whole failure syndrome, or I call it learned helplessness, where it's like easier to give up than it is to keep trying. And so it's a vicious cycle. And so it lends itself to that. And that's where people really, I mean, that's the seriousness of it. We can make light and have jokes, but at the same time, we can't underestimate how hard it is for people.
Yeah, that cycle that you mentioned, that was the one we talked about in when we had our conversation about emotional eating.
Mhm.
Now here you are, you're face to face with pick your negative emotion.
Mhm.
How do you get out of that moment? There aren't that many solutions, but in that short-sighted moment, boy, food certainly does make you feel good. There's so many different options. It tastes so damn good, and you can kind of, as you're for eat your emotions right there in the moment, and in the short term have solved the problem, very short term, right? But then, as you
The
said,
other thing is that people have no history around doing anything except that.
yes, yes,
So really what people are very practiced at is that like, oh, well, here I go again. So let me eat the whole bag or quart or box. What we want to help people be more practiced at is that it doesn't have to be that way. There isn't just one.
yes,
I
yes,
think that's where that skill part comes in. And that's the good news.
yes. So let's get into it then. Let's focus on solutions. And how
Yeah.
does one get back on track? Is there sort of a broad point to make about this? We say this about a lot of different things, but boy, it's just so true in this work. This is, using a phrase that you've heard many times, a process, not an event.
Yes. It's a practice.
It's a practice. It's an ongoing process comprised of a series of steps, strategies.
And to some extent, if somebody does slip up, it's an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
If they're in the right space and working with a coach, so if they can get out of their own head, which is hard to do, you can really learn that there is another way to do it. And that's, I think, a little bit freeing for people that like
Yeah.
there's another way than the way I've only done it. I remember I think this may have been on a Facebook Live that you did, Rick. There was a gentleman on and he said, and he was very successful with his weight. And of course he had slip ups and he went off track, but he said that his setbacks were opportunities for his comebacks. Do you remember that? And I
Uh-huh.
remember I wrote that one down. I thought that is exactly right.
Mm, mm.
And I know here's another one because I know you love quotes. I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting from experience.
Mm, I like
Like
that
that.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
all in the service of the bigger picture and improving at this very challenging task. All of these perspectives. I think that I'll throw another quote at you, also from someone from a Facebook Live, so a very frequent co-host of mine. You remember Shane?
oh
Yeah. So Shane, hey Shane, if you're listening, I'll never forget his quote. So Shane, he had an unusual history. So he lost 80 pounds in phase one,
yeah. Yep.
and then he lost another 80 pounds in phase two. These are roughly the right numbers. Do you remember his quote that he would repeatedly ask himself, literally throughout the day, and it became his mantra that would sort of drive his behavior. So we actually have called it in our program, we call it Shane's dictum.
Don't
Shane's
remember.
dictum. And it's, what's the next successful choice I can make? What's the next successful choice? Seems like such a simple thing, but if you're taking that question seriously, and what I like about it is it's collapsing the time down. Like the next immediate successful choice I can make. Okay, now what's the next immediate successful choice? I mean, think about that. He drove that to incredible success in phase two. And, he became a virtuoso on the grill with his lean proteins. There was a lot of supporting strategies that went along with that. But
Yeah.
Shane's dictum, what's the next successful choice I can make? See, why I think this is so important is because here you are, you're off track. You're on some version of a slippery slope, death by 1,000 paper cuts, down, 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 down. You've got to reverse the trend. And if you're going to fall into black and white thinking and say, well, I'm just going to completely change everything. Well, maybe, but probably not. What about just getting into action, even if it's incrementally? And that's really what Shane's dictum is.
Yeah, that's great because if you can catch it, in that moment,
Yeah.
and what that also forces you to do is be aware. Because as I said before, sometimes people are unaware that it's happening. So this way now you're saying, wait a minute, whoa, what is the next best thing I can do? What is the next best behavior?
Next choice or decision. I think he might
Yeah.
have said, what's the next successful choice I can make?
Yeah. And now it puts you back in the driver's seat.
That's right.
And it starts to change that narrative in your mind. It's like, I can't do it. I'm going down the slope. I'll start next month. Now you've caught it and you're like, no, I can do something. I can go make a shake.
Yes.
I can go take a quick walk.
Yeah.
And throw the cookies away. I can phone a friend. I mean, we always laugh about that one in our classes because it's the play on the, what was that show? The Do You Want to Be a Millionaire? How to Be a Millionaire or whatever. But
Yeah.
you phone a friend. But sometimes just an intervention. It's almost like an intervention. It's like a.
And think about what it gets at. See, the slippery slope is just subtle, but also we're victims of black and white thinking. We're also victims, you just demonstrated it with your modeling there, of catastrophizing. Oh, it's all over, or I need to now flip a switch and be perfect. Okay, good luck.
Right.
Shane's dictum, what's the next successful choice I can make? It acts like a razor. It sort of blows those things away because now you're focused on the next successful choice you can make. So I just don't think we can emphasize that enough. If someone is feeling off track, you got to get back in action. But I mean, leaps and bounds are wonderful if you can do it. But who's capable of doing that when you're buried with those negative emotions we just talked about?
Well, and just to add to that, people often want to wait to feel a certain way to act a certain way. I'll wait till I feel better, more motivated, have more energy, whatever. And it's the action first and then the motivation. And that's so important.
Yes.
Because you can't wait around to feel a certain way. You'll be waiting forever,
Forever.
That's why this also is so beneficial because it's like get in action right away.
Yep.
Not only will it stop maybe the slippery slope, but you will start to feel better, which could translate into motivation or energy or whatever it needs to be for you at that time.
Yeah. I think it's a counterintuitive thing, right? Because it's like, well, let me get on track. I got to get motivated to get on track. Nope. You just put the cart before the horse. Let me practice a little grit, a little resilience. You got to engage in the successful behaviors that you haven't been doing. Another argument to make it short term, time limited, next successful choice. You do that, and then exactly what you just said, motivation follows successful behaviors.
Yep. And then what are those? So just so people are really clear, like, all right, what's the next best choice I can make? What might be some of those choices? Like, let's give it like 5 or 4 or whatever, just so people can like write them down and say, yep, I'll do this, this, and this, or whatever.
All right. I'm going to tell you my number one, and I'm going to guess most people listening, at least if they're in our programs or have experience with our program, would agree. I'm starting with shakes. And I'm starting with, I have a great quote for you. I'm so glad that you pointed me here. So I was working with someone over the weekend about getting back on track. And I was talking about how the upside potential of doing more shakes than you have been.
Mhm.
right? Because you can fall into, well, that's kind of what I do. Well, not happy with what's happening. Well, maybe we do a little more and start with the shakes. So there's obviously there are the physiological benefits of shakes, right? High volume, I'm full. Um, Low calorie, so producing a calorie deficit, nutrition, blah blah blah, all that. She said something that was the bullseye for the psychological benefits of shakes, and she said, I actually wrote it down. The magic about the shakes is how much they remove you from the decisions and old patterns and habits. There's a lot of wisdom
Yeah.
in that sentence.
Bingo. Absolutely 100%. And I always say to people, I feel like every one of our members has a connection to a shake as being a successful behavior.
That's right.
They just do, because they started that way.
More
So
positive psychology.
yeah, so I think that whether you're aware of it or not, and you're probably not aware of it, but when you pick up that shake and you drink it, in addition to it being filling and all in good nutrition, it's a successful behavior,
Yeah.
and that feels good. Again, back to so yeah, I'm with you. Shake is number one in my book too.
Wow.
When in
Awesome.
doubt, shake it out. That's what
Yes. Yeah. You start blending up that shake, all of a sudden it's Pavlov's dog. You've got the blender is going, you're making it. It's not like it's that hard once you've made the decision to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
So-
the hard part.
And
That's the
then
hard part.
and then if I was to just say, you might want to do one or two more shakes than you think you need to do if you're really not on track.
Don't even go down the slippery slope of it's too many calories and don't go there, because I don't think anybody's getting off track because they're eating too many shakes. I don't think anybody's gaining weight because they've had, no.
No. So it's 2/3 of blended by the directions, 2/3 of a pound of food for 120 calories, 110 to 120, something like that. 2/3 of a pound of food. Name some other 2/3 of a pound of food where you're eating it for 100. It's not happening.
Can't find it. Yeah, that's
It's just not happening.
I love that you put things in numbers like that. I just don't think like that. 2/3 of a pound of food. Never
Oh
heard
my
that.
God. I'm irrationally afraid of, we've talked about this before as well, being hungry. You're not full and you think you're hungry, you think you're starved, that whole thing. To me, I just don't know who does. No, no. Please let me push hunger as far away as possible. I don't like it unless I know the next meal or snack is right there. So I'm always thinking in terms of the volume mechanics of this thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
okay.
number one is shakes. What's
Shake.
number two?
Shakes, and for the physiological, for the psychological benefits, and maybe a few more shakes to get back on track than you think. Okay, good. Okay, so what other strategies also reduce decisions, add structure, provide volume, and have a positive psychological component to that? I don't know. I'm stumped. I can't think of one.
I don't know. I could think of it.
We could go with, let's cast that wider. We could go with time to bang out the servings.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be my number two, but it's definitely one. And I'll tell you why, because it's too time consuming.
You're going to go to entrees.
No, I'm going to go to PA.
Oh, interesting.
I would say for me, sometimes just like, not like an hour, but like literally just go out the door, walk to like if I'm here at work, go out to the end of the parking lot and back, and it's just like it clears the cobwebs out of my brain. I don't know. It's powerful for me. It's just, it's an action. I'm moving away from the environment. I don't know. It clears, like I said, the cobwebs out of the brain.
I'm a different person after I exercise. You know what? I think we may be mistaken by trying to rank order. I do like keeping shakes at one.
Yeah, I do too.
Can we keep that? And then the rest are just sort of more of a menu to select off of.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, so the PA, it can feel like, well, what's the point, right? I'm gonna go out and I'm burn 50 calories. It ain't about the calories.
Yeah, exactly. You're not doing this to, get 400 calories burned for the day. It's really just clear your head.
Yes.
It's almost like, when you want to shake someone, like I feel like that.
Yeah.
For me anyway, it kind of shakes me. I'm like, okay, whoa, I'm back. And again, the end of the driveway and back. Like we're not talking around the block or whatever it might be.
Let
Not
me
always
show you
legal.
something on the PA. I'm so glad you brought this up. Hold on. Here we are. One
I'm
of
very,
the one of
yes, that's a great
two or
reference.
three of the most influential books in our years at HMR. We bought a copy of this for every staff member across the country
Yeah.
because this was the first book, the Spark, for those of you just listening, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain by John Rady. So the whole thing for me, and I think a lot of people felt this way, it was this idea that when you just stand up and just start moving, and it does not have to be for 30 minutes, it doesn't even have to be for 5 minutes, you just start moving, things instantly start to change in your brain. A cascade of chemicals, growth factors, and neurotransmitters. The whole thing sparks up. It's unbelievable. And that was what was so empowering about this book, which was when you move, your brain changes in all positive ways. So is it surprising that you said, I'm going to put PA next? Because when you go out and do a walk, you come back and you just feel different. You feel better.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Again, it has nothing to do with the calories. I might not even put it in my tracker. It's more just it's one of those intervention behaviors when know I'm going down the wrong path. It just kind of gets me back. That works for me. And to your point, we don't have to necessarily rank order them. We'll leave shakes at one, but like you said, people can pick and choose. But just to have some ideas, I think is really helpful for people.
Yes. And
Now go back to fruits and vegetables. Now I'll let you.
yeah, and one person an entrees would be better because now you're getting a hint of savory, salty, a successful behavior people tend to have a lot of experience with, no decisions, blah, 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 all that. I'm going with fruits and veggies just because of the way that you can incorporate them throughout the day. You can incorporate them with your shakes, with your entrees, with your lean proteins if you're in phase 2. So much variety these days. Last week in our coaching sessions, I was hefting a watermelon during our calls just because our whole joke, we say it the same way every time because we want people to remember it. Unless you're pushing lemons and limes. Big lemon lime day, anyone? No, no one pushes. Watermelon's number one. It's the lowest calorie fruit out there, followed right next with cantaloupe and honeydew.
Yeah.
So we were hammering that point last week because this is the time for it. Here we are in June.
Well, and it's interesting though, and this is a complete side note, but I'm going to say it anyway. Do you know how many people tell me they can't eat watermelon because it's too high in sugar? So I just want to say for the record, let that go. There is no one in America who the reason that they're overweight or struggle with their weight is because they eat too much watermelon. Let's just start with that. Number 2, it's loaded with fiber. So it has natural sugar. The fiber in it is going to help to mitigate any kind of sugar spikes. And then, of course, it has all the vitamins and minerals. It does the same thing. So you got to let that one go, people. Got to let that one go. So I just have to say it.
So if we wanted to be diplomatic, we might just say, let's frame the conversation around calories, since that's what drives weight gain or weight loss. Calories, calories, calories. The sugar in some ways can be a red herring. If you're tightly managing calories, the sugar can't be an issue. It can't be. So, okay, so we're talking about as quickly as possible, making the next successful choice. One more time, Shane's dictum. We are talking about shakes as maybe being unique for the reasons that we detailed. PA, if you really want to get a hit of some altered brain chemistry, just start moving and it happens. And now we've just hit on fruits and veggies in their myriad colors, varieties, so low calorie, such high volume. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And then I have a fun story to tell you. So I'm going to put a plug in for entrees also being, because in my mind, it's like, I need something that's quick. I need something that I can go to in this moment that's going to redirect me. It's almost like a GPS, like rerouting, recalculating. So this woman who's in the program, and she's been with us for many, many years. And so she's a veteran, I'll call her, and she's very successfully keeping off weight. She says that when some nights when she's off track, and she's very open about the fact she goes off track, she says, I'll heat up an entree 10 o'clock at night, and that's the last thing I eat before I go to bed.
Mm.
She said it's completely counterintuitive, but she said it just gets me back. It gets me back. And it is counterintuitive. Like, why would you do that? But for her, it's a behavior. Going back to Shane, it's like, it's a behavior that helps her regroup, recommit, refocus, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of a good plug for meal replacement. So shakes on.
I agree. I mean, if you think about it, when you're off track in some way, shape, or form, you're avoiding, right?
Mhm.
I'm making promises, you're rationalizing, you're justifying, and we all do it, right? Our very first point here, most normal thing in the world. Everyone goes off track, and it's fueled by the slippery slope of rationalizations, etc. When you're having an entree at night like that, are you avoiding in any way? It's the opposite. You're confronting.
Right.
You confront, and there goes the avoiding. So it's a wonderful identifiable step.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one person's entree is someone else's fill in the blank.
Right, exactly. Shake or pudding or cereal, or maybe it's an apple. I mean,
I was just gonna say an orange,
yeah,
a banana with PB2 powder sprinkled on it. I love that. I love that.
that's
That's
a good one. That's actually a good nighttime thing anyway, because bananas help people sleep.
And one we've been exploring a lot in our program is for people in phase 2. You know how you have the 0 sugar Greek yogurts, so 60 calories,
Mhm.
adding a shake as a pudding, or either making it as a pudding and then combining them, or I like to just put the pudding powder in. It's so dense. I mean, I can eat a yogurt pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Have you done this strategy
I
before?
literally just had this before this recording.
You kidding?
I have that every day. It's not my nighttime, but it's my sometime during the day, whether it's breakfast or lunch or mid-afternoon. It's the best. Everyone out there, if you've not done it, you have to try it. So Chobani 0 sugar, 60 calorie yogurt. I like the toasted coconut vanilla personally.
I like that one too.
With vanilla, oh my God, it's like, talk about going back to the cheesecake slices that were 1,500 calories.
Yes.
If you eat this, I think it tastes like cheesecake.
Yeah, and if you don't want vanilla, any of the chocolate flavors, any of the
Yeah.
Advanced Health System pudding shakes,
Yeah.
phenomenal in it.
And
All right, so
it's a protein bomb too. Let me just say it's a protein bomb. You're getting like
That's
close to
exactly
30
right.
grams of protein.
Yes,
Can't
yes.
knock it.
And not to become too much of a cheerleader here, but the
I'm
mouthfeel,
getting excited.
it's why are you laughing? I sound like a complete geek here. No, but it's true. The mouthfeel, whether it's the protein or whatnot, it's just very dense. It doesn't lend itself to eating it quickly like the yogurt. I sound like I'm trying to convince you that this is a good idea.
No, I just think it's funny because I completely agree with you. And it's just, I think it's really fun and funny how excited we can be over
Yes, yes.
one food decision that could get us.
I'm renaming this podcast. Get back on track. It's put pudding in your Greek yogurt. That's the name of the podcast. Okay, so you need to settle. We need to wrap soon, but we need to settle a long-standing debate among some very prominent members in our program. There's a disagreement about how to make this, the strategy that we're talking about. Okay, it's been a heated, testy series of arguments about this. Barbara.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Barbara has a way of doing it, and then there's the Rick method. Are you going to tell me how you make it after I describe the two methods? And if you are not on Team Rick, I'm taking my ball and I'm running away from the playground. No, I'm only kidding. I will bow to the Barbara method if that's how you do it. So you've got the Greek yogurt, 60 calories. You make a pudding with water and then you combine it and you do get more volume. Or you've got the Rick, I'm too lazy method, where I take the Greek yogurt and I just simply add the pudding powder directly into the yogurt. It's more dense, a little less volume, but to me, the mouthfeel, blah, 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 everything we already talked about. So where do you land? Are you on Team Barbara or Team Rick?
Well, you will be very happy to know I am Team Rick.
Well, I think we can end this episode of the Weighing In podcast on that very positive note.
I will say I used to be Team Barbara, but I was like, I got lazy. I was like, I don't need the water. So Yeah, it was one more step. Didn't need it.
I do think there's a slightly different mouthfeel to it, but
Yeah.
that's all I'll say. There's no wrong way to do it. People
Yeah,
should try. People should weigh in. This is how we may really encourage people to leave an email
They
at the
can weigh in on this.
weighing in
Yes.
podcast at gmail.com. Are you team Barbara or team Rick?
Yes. Please email and let us know. We'd love to hear.
Okay, I have one final thought. I mean, I know that as we presented these strategies, it wasn't like we opened the genie bottle and came up with something people have never heard before. I think largely this was a conversation around normalizing the fact that people get off track, and it happens often, and there's no one who's immune to that. So Shane's dictum, can you collapse down the time to when you stop avoiding, rationalizing, and start confronting and make it easy? What's the next successful choice I can make?
Touch it right then.
Yep. And then I'll just say one other thing, Gina. You mentioned this word twice already, I think, but behind all of this is something that you and I like to lean in on in our group sessions, Bill as well, which is we're training people in the skills of greater self-awareness, mindfulness, if you will. And behind all of this, you just can't get past the importance of, I want to make this point because it might not be obvious to people, that there is another level of self-assessment and self-awareness that you can practice even when it feels like everything's going to hell in a handbasket. You're way off track. You can get better at identifying triggers. What started the slippery slope, or maybe it was an explosion going to that restaurant or whatever. So awareness, awareness, awareness. And then from that, the idea that getting back on track is a series of steps. And anything you practice, what happens?
Get better.
You get better at it.
Better at it. You get more skilled at it. So it's not so hard all the time.
Yes.
So hard all the time. Let's take the hard out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's got to be positive. Like, it doesn't have to be heavy all the time. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to suffer so much. But it is a series of steps, and it is a practice, and we have to appreciate that. One has to appreciate it. Just takes time. Takes time.
Time and experience, a process, not an event. We skipped one thing, and then this is it.
Okay.
When you're off track, sometimes the only thing you can do, the behaviors themselves, even the next successful choice might be too much. If you are in our programs, get into your coaching session for the week.
Yeah. Or even call your coach.
Or call your coach. That's
text
right.
your coach. Call, text, and get your ass into the seat. Because it makes a difference.
That's right. That's right. All right. So there you go.
Good stuff.
Getting back on track. We'll be revisiting this along with our other topics many times, I'm sure.
And if anybody has any topics they want us to weigh in about, email us, theweighinginpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and please leave an email there telling everyone how you are on Team Rick in terms of the pudding and yogurt strategy.
Oh, Barbara's going to have an earful for you.
Oh, yes, she is. All right. Thanks, Gina. Once again, just a blast.